So I wanted to talk about um, the difference between your front stage and backstage of your life. And it's becoming an increasingly more important aspect of life is sort of front stage and backstage. And I want to say it was Irving Goffman that talked about this. He was a social psychologist years ago and was using this analogy, and somebody's going to correct me, and that's great, and put the comments. Um, But, you know, I was talking about this idea of front stage, backstage in theater, where, we've got this sort of front stage self where when you're looking at a play, sorry, I was having those nut clusters from cashew nut clusters from Costco. Costco, if you're listening, I would love for you to sponsor this channel, but I know you don't because I'm a big fan. Anyways, those nut clusters from Costco, they're amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I highly recommend them. It's like half of my diet, and which is probably not great for a diet. So, anyways, so the idea is with the front stage, you have all of this stuff in like the theater is going on. There's a play that's going on. It's very choreographed. It's sort of beautiful. Everything is sort of put together, and it is very organized. But then you've got the backstage. When you go to the backstage of a production, um, it's a complete disaster, right? Like people running around, people are half naked. Like the people are nervous, they're talking, like there's just a lot going on, and it's a giant disaster. And he was sort of making this analogy with ourselves, is that we have this sort of projection that everything is organized, and we're beautiful creatures, and everything is just like just so. But then in the background, um we're a giant wreck, like just falling apart, and we're nervous, like you might end up going. I saw this it was a really good, I think it was on TikTok. It's really good TikTok where they're like going at a meeting, and they're like doing, everybody looks beautiful at the meeting and organized, but everybody inside is showing the thoughts of everybody inside, and they're like, don't pick me to talk, and I'm really nervous, and I don't know what to do, and I'm a giant disaster. And then when they say it, it all comes out and sounds amazing, and everybody thinks that is amazing. Like, how did you think of that thing? And that goes, it just goes through everybody that's at the meeting, and everybody thinks like they're a total fraud and a disaster. But when they talk, they sound like they're all put together. That's kind of like life, right? So you've got the front stage and backstage, um, and I think that. So sorry. What a disaster. Speaking of being a disaster, backstage, sneezing and coughing and all this kind of stuff. I just came out of teaching, so I'm just talking at this moment. But we've got this sort of backstage, ourself is a disaster, and then we've got this front stage. But with social media, um, there's two aspects that are going on that I think are really important. Digital social media. We're actually having a bit of a conversation in class about some of this stuff, and as you know, I'm a big believer in it and really like it at this moment. Although it's got a lot of downfalls. But just talking, right? Like I'm a weirdo that's talking to myself. Or maybe there's somebody listening, but um, you know, that's the thing, right? Like you've got this front stage where you are a weirdo that's talking to yourself, but there's people listening to it, right? Like that's the funny part, is that there is this front stage, but then they're also seeing like your backstage by doing this. And the blend of what's going on. First of all, there's tons of people that are projecting on social media that they're all put together, which is a load of horse crap. And most people are not put together, but they've got, whether they're an Instagram model or that on YouTube, whatever, um, you know some of these sort of YouTube influencers or whatever, that they show that they have their act together and everything. It's like amazing. They're driving around in Lamborghinis and, doing, I don't know, all that kind of crap. Um, but in reality, they're just, they're falling apart. Um, and so you have to really know that on social media, um, what is going on for the vast majority of social media, it's an act. It is, you might think that is their real life, but no, it is an act. And for all of the sleazeballs that are out there, they're the sleazeball kind of stuff on social media, they're acting, and you have to realize that they're acting. They're selling you stuff. They're doing things that are sort of manipulating with you. But then there's also the backstage component of it. um, and I think that's where social media is headed, where there is more mess, and where people are just a giant disaster. And that's the more interesting part of where things are moving. And I think where people are losing out, you know, there are some people that are just genuinely, beautiful or whatever, like that people actually want to see this kind of stuff. Like there are people that are like that, but they've got absolutely nothing going on. Um, or some people that are ultra wealthy or whatever, and people want to follow them, all that kind of stuff. But the vast majority of the people follow others because they just want to get to know them. They're like kind of an interesting kook. And everybody's an interesting kook, and I think that's where we're kind of going to. Is it sort of, a lot of breaking down of barriers. But here's the weird tension that I see, as I'm doing this. So you're hearing all my personal thoughts, and you're hearing a lot about me. It's kind of like a personal diary or whatever, right? But it still is a front stage, right? Like when you come and see me, I'm going to be, I hopefully I'm going to be similar to what you sort of know me as, but it's still not me. Um, it's still, and it's even weirder when you think about like how persistent these things are, right? Like, so I'm talking about this right now. Um, and it's me right now, but I'm going to listen to this maybe, in a decade or 2 decades, and be like, what the heck is he talking about? Like, he's just kind of babbling or whatever, right? But, um, you know, realizing that and then at that moment, it's like the front stage, right? Like that is, it's all, it seems like it's an act and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm not that kind of person. And so that's the weird thing that I've come to conclude, like, realize is that social media is what you see and what you get and all that kind of stuff is an act. It is, maybe it's the real self that's going on, but it's still an act, in the sense that you're getting a snapshot of somebody that you're not like participating in, and interacting in, and that is forever going to be like that. That it is this sort of, play that is playing on, and so the weird thing is, as I've been doing this for a while, not so long as the podcast, but social media on like YouTube and stuff, it is going to be this play is really a play that's sitting there. And I might access that play in 10 years, and sort of say, hey, I actually had a couple of thoughts there. If not, maybe not. But, it is still a play, and it's a play on anybody. It's a really weird phenomenon, I think, at this moment, where we're seeing a play of your life, which is like totally matrix, mind trippy kind of thing, where, I'm living my life, but then you're seeing the sort of act of what my life is and listening to what my life is. Um, and, somebody in 100 years might find this, hopefully, if this persists, or it might be buried, but, buried in the data deluge. But, somebody's going to see this and they're going to say, hey, this was kind of interesting. It's kind of like an artifact of 2021, that there'll be digital archivists and stuff that'll look at this and say, hey, this was one weird kooky person talking about things. which was like a play, right? And then I don't know. It's just kind of a weird, trippy thought, where we're still, no matter how real this is in terms of social media and how like close this is, it's still a play. It's still acting, and there's still like a front stage that's there. And I could tell you the most intimate things about myself, and you're still not going to completely know me, and it's still going to be this play that you're watching, that's watching in front of you. So some truth there between the backstage and front stage, and knowing. So this is one thing in terms of anybody who wants to do this. Eventually, if they want to do social media or whatever, is is realize it's an act, and then don't get caught up into becoming too serious about yourself with it. Um, I don't know. It's not worth it to get too serious about it. But it's also like, for me, it has been remarkably therapeutic, because I get to diary on a regular basis and tell you about all these kind of things, and tell you about my frustrations and anxieties, and somebody else is maybe going to benefit from that. So that's it. Thanks so much for listening. I'm going to go back to real life as soon as this turns off. It's weird. Still my real life right now, but as soon as I turn it off, it's real life. Weird, trippy. So anyways, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. It's kind of a deep thought, and have a good one.